Good evening, everyone. Let me call this Council Finance meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. for Monday, December 1st, 2014. Tonight's Finance Committee meeting's agenda is a presentation by the Central Collection Agency on the collection of municipal taxes for the City of Maple Heights. They're going to do a presentation, and then afterwards we'll do a question and answer. I will begin with the roll call. Edwina Agee. Ron Jackson. Here. Alex Adams. Here. Richard Drzejewski here. And so I will now introduce Mr. Nassim Lynch and April Palmer with the Central Collection Agency. Thank you for coming out this evening.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and obviously the citizens of Maple Heights. As the Chairman said, my name is Nassim Lynch. If you don't mind, can I sit? Okay, good. Because my legs are a lot older than I used to. I'm the Commissioner of Taxation for the City of Cleveland, but I am also the Administrator of the CCA, the Central Collection Agency. CCA was created in 1966 when Cleveland enacted its first income tax ordinance. It created a central collecting facility to administer not only the City of Cleveland's income tax, but also any municipality that chose to join and become a member of the agency. So we are a governmental entity, and we serve at the pleasure of all of the municipalities that are members of the agency. In the beginning, from 1967, when the agency first opened its doors, until sometime in 1971, all the cities throughout Northeast Ohio were part of the CCA. Also at that time, there was a reciprocal agreement between the City of Cleveland and all the municipalities that called for a reciprocal amount of income tax that was being collected in the City of Cleveland to be shared back to those suburban communities where residents may be living. In 1971, those reciprocal agreements were canceled, and half of the agency members left and formed the Regional Council of Governments and then created the Regional Income Tax Agency. So half of our members went off to form RETA and the other half stayed with the agency, CCA. We've been coexisting for these many 40 years. And our sole purpose is to administer the income tax ordinances for each of our member cities in a cost-effective and efficient manner as possible. We've been doing that, as I said, for 47 years, and we have, for the most part, been able to maintain an average cost of less than 2% to collect for all of our member communities. Now, that's not to say that each member city is only going to pay 2%. Some are going to pay more, some are going to pay less, but the cost associated with the operation of the agency is charged on a very fair and equitable basis. What we do is we take the total dollars that we collect for each of our member communities compared to the total dollars that we collect for the agency, and the total number of transactions that we process for each community compared to the total number of transactions for the agency. The arithmetic mean of those two numbers is used as a cost to calculate for each city. Not knowing exactly how much the City of Maple Heights collected or the number of transactions that were processed on their behalf, we made some estimates. And we prepared a document that would illustrate if the City of Maple Heights was a member of CCA for 2013 and how your costs would have been if we were collecting your income tax and part of our agency, and how they compare to the rest of the communities within the agency. And we have that, we can share that with you. We did make some assumptions, and we can refine that based on perfect information if this council chooses to have us do that.
How better to have one copy?
But based on that, I believe that it shows that if we were collecting the income tax for the municipality, the cost would have been about 2.3%. I'm not sure how that relates to the current costs, but that's just based on assumptions that we made And given we rounded out a total dollars and estimated transactions number based on similarly sized communities. Now, those costs, as I say, include everything that we do for each municipality. We design the forms, we mail the forms, we maintain databases of all the taxpayers. We process all the returns that come back through the mail. We've provided a mechanism to allow residents and businesses to file electronically through our own website, not necessarily through a paid service, but it's free to file their tax returns through our website. Each tax year, the agency sends out auditors to each of our member communities to provide taxpayer assistance, where they'll fill out their residents' tax returns for free. There's no cost associated with that. And there's no cost that we pass on to the member community for it. If I send 4 auditors out to the city of Maple Heights on 3 separate occasions to prepare the city tax return for your residents, I won't be sending a bill for their time, because they're employees working on behalf of the community. Each year we do delinquency work following our normal. What we do is we allow for the federal time of extension to take place, and then after that we look at all of the returns that we have received compared to all the names that we have active on our files to determine whether or not everybody that sent a tax return in fact filed the return. If they didn't, then we start sending out notices of failure to file. Coupled along with that, we have approximately 22 years ago, I signed an agreement with the Internal Revenue Service to allow me to get federal tax information. And I've had this relationship for quite some time, and I have access to all of the IRS data for every one of our member communities. So I can see who did in fact file a federal return and compare it to whether or not they filed a return with the agency, or if they did file it, was it including any of the income that was filed through the federal return. This has helped us to augment the delinquency efforts that we already employ for all of our member communities. We get information from the state of Ohio also for those people that file state returns. And we use all of those files in an effort to try and ensure total compliance on behalf of the cities. We calculate penalty and interest, and that's always going to be based on your own income tax ordinance and how we charge penalties and interest associated with failure to file or late payments or whichever. And we mail those bills out on a monthly basis. Each year we also turn over cases to be adjudicated in the local courts. So if we have a delinquent taxpayer who has failed to respond to any of our efforts to come into compliance, after a certain number of attempts, we turn that case over to the local prosecutor, to the community, to adjudicate the case in court. And then we will provide expert testimony on behalf of the community, on behalf of the city, in support of that case. We canvass communities. The agency has a field audit team that goes out to the various communities to determine if there's construction site, new businesses that are opening up. They'll do a door-to-door canvass to see whether or not the city's taxpayers are fully registered. If the city provides us a list, these are who our taxpayers are as far as we know, I can send auditors out to walk around and see whether or not those businesses that may not be on there are registered. We represent each of the member communities in various tax organizations. We're members of the Ohio Association of Tax Administrators. We're members of the Ohio Municipal League. I sit on their tax committee. Actually, tomorrow afternoon I'm going to be driving to Columbus to testify before the Senate on Substitute Bill HB 5, which is somewhat of an egregious attempt to take away a lot of the authority of municipalities in taxing at the local level. We do this, and those costs, there's nothing other than what your transaction and dollar costs are going to calculate out to. Aside from that, I would be very happy to answer any questions that
I'd like to open up to the committee members. Does anybody have any questions?
I got one.
Go ahead, folks.
How's your collection on delinquency taxpayers? What's your rate, percentage-wise?
You know, we've never calculated a rate of success. Currently, in this most recent year, we will mail out on any given month anywhere from 20 to 30,000 penalty and interest notices to what we've calculated as delinquent taxpayers. Each year, at this time, actually within the last 3 weeks, we've conducted what we call an RB program. It's a reassessed billing program, where we send out notification to all of those individuals who had a penalty and interest notice that was sent out during the prior year, and failed to respond to. We reassess that, calculating more what the new tax penalty and interest would be. And we set up a docket number and a parent's time, and we direct those individuals that if they fail to report and come in to pay that bill, then their case is turned over to the prosecutor for prosecution. That has provided a lot of success with our efforts. Obviously, it's a threatening and rather ominous thing. They're going to appear either in our office or in court. And as far as a success rate with that specific program, I've never calculated it, but we've generated a few $1 million every year as far as delinquent taxes that we collect.
Now, when a taxpayer, say you're working, but they don't file their city income tax yet, you say in your material here that you get your access to our Internal Revenue Service. Now, do you automatic check that up against the resident where they live if they're working? Is that automatic, or do we have to draw your attention that somebody isn't paying it?
Well, no, you wouldn't need to draw your attention to us to do this. Each year we have seasons, and throughout the year there's certain things that we do, which is standard. Whether it's printing the forms, mailing them out, processing the returns, following up on failure to file returns, then following up on those returns that we've calculated penalty and interest on. We have a special audit department that's solely responsible for working with the IRS data, the tapes, the data that we get from the Internal Revenue Service. That is a completely unique program. It has its own little restrictions. It has its own security measures. As a matter of fact, the agency on an annual basis is subject to an Internal Revenue Service audit. They fly a team of those federal people in to review the security measures that the agency employs to make sure that we very well protect the data that we have on hand, the information that we have on behalf of Maple Heights. I cannot reveal the names or the amounts of the information that I have. If it's a delinquent taxpayer and I get it from the IRS, I cannot tell the city of Maple Heights that I have ABC company that is failing to file or owes X number of dollars, because it's restricted by IRS rules. What I can do is go after that company, and if they return or pay the money that they're owing us, owing the city, I can turn that over, and you can know that that was from the efforts that we put forth using IRS data. If we're going to prosecute that case, until that case goes to court, it's not a matter of public record. But once it's in court, then it becomes a matter of public record. And there's, other issues that we deal with.
And you would send that case to our prosecutors, and then they would forward to our municipal court.
A case such as that is we require the use of a special prosecutor, one that has been approved by the Internal Revenue Service to adjudicate the case. Then the municipality agrees to have that prosecutor prosecute the case on that.
And those services would be all covered under the, say, for example, the estimate you had
Correct. However, the municipality is going to pay for the cost associated with collection, with the court cost, whatever the prosecutor's costs are. That's the municipality's responsibility because we've turned that over to prosecute that case. As far as, like I said, I have never calculated a success rate. And because it's somewhat of a moving kind of process, we may be finding a delinquency account from 3 years prior, where we've looked at information that we just got. This resident happened to be living there, and no one knew that, and we just found information out. So that would be, we'd go after that case, that account. So each year, we could find new delinquents that has popped up from 2 or 3 years earlier. And we go after it. We also recommend changes to your ordinance. If there's some state action that takes place, we would advise the community that you need to have your ordinance amended as a result of that. As I said, we represent the cities in the Ohio Municipal League's tax committees. So, I helped draft the model ordinance for municipalities some 30 years ago. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just am curious, when you stand Art, Rita, and your agency side by side, can you tell us what makes your agency different or best practices?
I am taller than my counterpart.
Okay, then sit.
The agencies are similar, but they are somewhat distinct. Similar in that when Rita was created, they took some of our employees, they took our model ordinance, they took our rules and regulations. They're structured a little differently. They have a marketing team that's sole purpose is to travel around the state and market the agency. April and I are a marketing team for CCA. I go to any community that wants to be informed on the agency's benefits. Our costs are as precise as possible. Each year, once our financial audit is completed by independent auditors, usually the state of Ohio's auditor comes in and does a financial and a SSAE audit, which is our information systems audit. Once that is completed, we determine whether or not the cost associated with each of our member communities was done correctly. If there is a allocation adjustment, we make it after that audit is done. And April was the controller for the agency prior to her being elevated to the assistant income tax administrator, and as a result of the work that she did, the costs were so precise that for the last 9 years, we've never had very significant variations in our costs with our member communities. Regional income tax agency will charge the community a retainer throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, they'll say, oh, by the way, we owe you money. And as opposed to charging you what you're actually supposed to pay, because it's your money anyway. You should have it at the time that you can, and not wait 12 months later. CCA doesn't charge for any of its ancillary services, as I indicated earlier. If I send a team of field auditors to the community to canvass, you're not going to be charged for that. If I send auditors to prepare tax returns on behalf of communities, you're not going to be charged for that. It's all part of the cost to operate the agency. Regional Income Tax Agency does, in fact, bill for other ancillary services. To what extent I don't know. They're, I forget what they call them, send out Parents' notices, I think they're $25 for each for. Other than that, I don't know. You know, if the perception is really based on the service that we provide on other communities. I think that all of our members are satisfied with the work that we do. The city of Dayton is a member of CCA. Dayton joined CCA a number of years ago to help them with their delinquency work. The City of Athens, Ohio is a member of CCA. The City of Akron is a member of CCA. They're self-collected and they wanted us to help them with their delinquency. The city of, that just joined recently, I'm sorry, New London, Ohio. They're self-collecting, but they're looking to us to give them advice on how they can improve their collections. So there are benefits, obviously, for us to be able to administer a municipal income tax for each of the cities around. At some point in time, there could be a move by the state of Ohio that says they're going to collect your income tax.
Yes.
These are things that we're trying to prevent. I think that would be very devastating.
So, if hypothetically, if the city of Maple Heights was to go with the CCA, can you explain what would be the process for the city joining the CCA and leaving Rita?
Your agreement,
that.
and I would suspect that the agreement is, language is probably the same as any agreement that we have with the municipality, is you have to notify the agency within 6 months of termination. Typically, it will say that if you're going to leave by the end of the year, it has to be a June 1st notification that you will be provided. There's a proviso, I believe, that could give a 6-month out at any time throughout the year. Should Maple Heights join the agency, you need a resolution authorizing that. And there are no startup costs, there are no startup processes. We would get a data file from Regional Income Tax Agency that we would merge to our database. And we would send out communications to residents and their employers, advising them that we are not the agent on your behalf. And it would be as seamless as possible. When a community has an existing tax in place, obviously most of the residents know it, so it's not like there's a need to re-educate them about that. When a new community or a community that starts an income tax, then there's some education process that goes on. We send out notifications and letters, but it would be as seamless as possible. There's no lead time. If you said, if the city of Maple Heights said, we'd like you to start collecting the tax January 1, okay. It's as simple as that. We would be sending out withholding statements to the businesses to let them know that these are the new forms that you would be using. Your residents would be getting the same form that we send out to all the residents for annual returns. We try and make it as easy, not only for the taxpayers to be in compliance, but easy for the community itself. We always make sure that there's a tax administrator who is designated to receive the information that we maintain and give to the community. And that's it.
Yes, Mr. Jackson.
Hey, got a couple of questions. One, I heard you talk about a termination time frame that you would probably be locked in with Rita. And if that's 6 months, realistically, then you couldn't start January 1.
Right.
Right, okay.
Unless there's a, I'm sorry, Mr. Councilman, but unless there is a proviso in the agreement, and I don't have access to your agreement, but if there was a proviso, a mutually agreed upon time.
Right. Seeing that we've been with Rita, and let's say we had a person who has delinquent taxes, that's due. And if we switched over, have you worked with Rita to get that information from them and people who are delinquent that you could then?
Right, we would follow up. We would get a data file from Regional Income Tax Agency. We have a mechanism to convert their data into the format that we need. And we would include those delinquent accounts in our billing system, and we would start sending those notifications out as they would normally be going out. One of the things I forgot to mention when you had asked about the CCA, some years ago, Regional Income Tax Agency was looking to build a new computer system. And they had approached me and wanted a copy of ours because ours was so, was good. And of course I didn't sell it to them, but they wanted it. So I think they recognized that we had something that they wanted and we weren't going to get. And it cost them about $30 million to build a new system, but it's still, I think it's still in production, I'm not sure.
Are y'all in like kind of friendly competition, or are y'all like arch enemies, or because a handful of them left, or who just kind of sound strange, they would come back to you and ask you for some computer software?
I've been involved in municipal income tax administration for almost 38 years, 37 and a half years. I'm the third administrator of the CCA since 1967. Regional Income Tax Agency has had about 14 administrators since 1971. I learned a long time ago that I need to work with municipalities and whoever I have to make sure that the job is completed on behalf of the cities that we service. So I try and be as amenable to everything.
So you take care of all your own collections. There's not ever a time that you send
To a service?
Yes.
No,
Okay, so everything's handled
that's correct.
in-house. Okay. I've got some other questions, but it's kind of off this subject. If anybody else has kind of questions about this part.
Tony Jones.
Mr. Chair, you mentioned that, okay, what amount does an individual need to be in arrears prior to you starting the subpoena or the court process? Does that amount equal out, or is it heavier than the cost of, say, the special prosecutor that we need to hire?
Well, the threshold for a delinquent account, there is no threshold, I should say, for us to pursue delinquent work on behalf of the community. If we were to determine cases that had the potential of going to utilize the special prosecutor, obviously we would advise the community that there is cases that could only be $50, or there could be cases that are in the thousands of dollars. And it would really be the city's right and responsibility to say, do we go forward with prosecuting at the cost associated with that? So we don't set up a threshold. We obviously advise the community, do you want us to do this?
That's a good answer.
Oh, good.